Thank you so much, guys, for jumping up and on tonight. We are so pumped that you are here. My name is Kyle Rainey, and you are going to meet some people tonight that have started their journey with Plexus, some for a long time, some have been here for a short time, but each of them have a thread in common. Each of them have been in ministry at some level. And you're here, you're watching this because somebody has invited you to come and check out these amazing people who have seen their lives change, but also have found a platform in order to change the lives of other people. And so we're excited. And you're going to hear from folks tonight that are pastors, that are church planners, that we're parachurch ministry workers, missionaries, pastor wives. It's going to be amazing. And so we are pumped. And what we really believe, we truly believe this too, that Plexus is not necessarily our ministry. It is our platform to help us increase our ministry, to increase our reach, to increase the things in which God has called us to do. So with no further ado, I'm going to get into my story a little bit later, but I want to introduce you to these amazing people. And first off, to kick us off tonight on this call is the amazing Matt and Jody McComas. And so let me tell you a little bit about these incredible people. They're from Portland, Oregon, living in the great state of Oregon, where hippies frolic to and fro, and they found their way there. We're super excited to hear from them. They worked for Campus Crusade for Christ at various universities and have an incredible story. Cass and I had the opportunity to get to know them while we were in Portland, living with them and going to church together. And so Matt and Jody, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to you and let you talk a little bit about your story.
Thanks, Kyle. Yep, we're in Portland, where we let our hair go gray naturally. It's a great place. So yeah, we met Kyle and Cassie over 8 years ago, probably 10. And I started Plexus 8 years ago, almost 8 years ago now, because I started watching their journey when Cassie was beginning to share about these amazing products that were helping their family. And like Kyle said, we were in full-time ministry at the time and had been for years. And I was just really miserable with my health and had been my whole life, basically, and it just continued to escalate. And we were drowning in medical bills and not getting to do the things that I wanted to do because I wasn't healthy, constant doctor's visits. And so I came in desperate and had kind of lost hope that my life would ever be different, honestly. But when I said yes to trying those products, within about 4 months, everything changed. And as a result of that, I was like, I have to share this with people. But because of the ministry that we were in, and, we raised our own funds, and that was amazing how God provided, that wasn't something that I was allowed to do. And I just felt like God did not answer this prayer that I've had for like 20 years now for me to sit on it. And I felt like this is another way that I get to help people. And so I actually went part-time in our ministry, and Matt was still full-time, and I began to share. And that's where the business was born, and it began to provide for our family in ways that we never expected. And I got to see people, women and moms especially, because that's who I was, begin to thrive and not just survive. And then they get to in turn do the things that they feel like they, are called to do at an even greater level. And so that's kind of how we ended up in the business side of this. And it has been so fantastic. It was kind of ironic because at the time we were working with post grads, and we had worked with college students for years, and we were teaching them how to live out your faith in the marketplace and why that's so important. And it was like, we're teaching them to do that, but we aren't doing that. Like, yes, this ministry is so important, but maybe we should go do what we're teaching them to do. And so that, again, was just another confirmation that we were headed in the right direction with Plexus as a business for me. And then I'm going to let Matt jump in, because it then was a gateway for something for him that had been a dream as well. And if it weren't for Plexus, this never would have happened. So I'm going to let him share a couple things.
Thanks. Yeah. I was thinking about what to share this morning about this. And one of the things that I just keep coming back to is this idea of margins in life. And we were in ministry for about 16 years, and I just always felt like our margins were so thin in so many areas of life, financially, emotionally, all that with time and energy and all those things. And it just felt like I could never kind of lift my head up from the whirlwind of life and like dream about like what God was calling me to personally. I just was kind of stepping into what was put in front of me in that day. So Jody kind of stumbled into the business. We had no intention to like launch that business, and she began to make meaningful income from it. And it was like, oh, okay. We can start thinking maybe a little bit differently about our future and kind of paying attention to what God was saying, the doors that he was opening along the way. And so she made enough kind of income revenue that I began to like dream about what I was being called to. And I felt like God was inviting me into the entrepreneur space. And because of that opportunity that we had, I was able to launch my own business. And that's a whole nother story, but it's now become a legit business that is sustainable because of the margins that we had financially at that time of our life. So super, super grateful for that opportunity. And it's allowed me then to do what I do best, and to serve the clients that I have and to love them well and to do good work along the way. So that's pretty meaningful for me. The other thing I was thinking about was, it's somewhat financial, but it overlaps into like the margins of time as well. A lot of what you guys know, our story is our daughter was diagnosed with pretty severe scoliosis about 5 years ago. And it was severe enough that it was like, schedule your spinal fusion surgery, next week sort of thing. But we had, at the time, we had enough margin in our life because of Jody's work in Plexus to consider alternate options. And it's God's providence that like he just provided in that time for sure. But we were able to pursue an alternative therapy for her and alternative treatment, which was substantial financial investment, but also just time, the ability to take time and go do what she needed to do, help her, support her in that journey. And thankfully it's been an awesome, result of that. But I just think about the margins, like so often our margins are so thin, and Plexus is a way to increase those margins to do what God has called you to do and to be kind of more fully yourself in those opportunities as well. So that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, but just the last couple things I would note, like why I even thought, could I partner with a company like Plexus? Because it's really important to me, like what I hitch my wagon to and what the mission and the vision and values are. That's something we spent 16 years caring a lot about, and just the integrity and the character of Plexus as a company and as a whole. And we have just watched that be backed up year after year after year. I mean, when the slogan is, if you're blessed to be a blessing, and then you watch that play out in the generosity and how they serve and give back, and partner with things like Feeding America, it's just really incredible. They put the customer and the ambassador first, and they're always looking to how they can serve us. And most companies just are not led that way. And so over and over again, it's just been confirmed that we're with the right company and have amazing products that really do change lives, and they want to leave a legacy for people in the best way. And so it's just been such a gift.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I love that. I love that you came in for the products, but God just kind of opened up this whole opportunity. And Matt, what you said about margins, I mean, it's just, that rings true for so many of us, especially those of us in ministry, right? That just, like you said, just go from one season to the next. Seems like those margins get smaller and smaller and smaller as the kids get older and older and older, and all these responsibilities come upon you on top of all your ministry. So guys, I'm so glad you brought up with your beautiful daughter, Jenna. I loved watching that story unfold. Love watching. I can just see the post of you guys actually having the time to get on a plane to fly to California to get that treatment. I mean, a lot of parents can't do that. Like they don't have the time to do that. So just an incredible story. Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate you so much for jumping on and for telling us your story. Next up, we have Heidi Graham. Heidi Graham, she's born and raised in Oregon. She is an Oregonian, true and true. Her and her husband, Kelly, have been married for 27 years, have 3 grown children. They met while serving in Young Life. So any Young Life fans out there, as college students, and they've always wanted to be in ministry together. And they've always done that together from the very beginning. Heidi's husband serves as a pastor currently in Salem, and he's been in the Pacific Northwest for, 27 years now? It's pretty incredible being in ministry that long. He currently serves at Calvary Chapel. So Heidi, will you tell us a little bit about your story and how kind of God called you into this business?
Sure. I, like Jody, had been watching Cassie and her journey, and um, I really had a lack of belief that this could be something for me, the products, the opportunity, any of those things. But I reached a desperate place in my own health where I just got sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so I messaged Cassie. I'm not even sure she had ever reached out and asked me if I was interested, but and I'm not sure she knew how much I was watching her. And so I just said, okay, what do I need to do? And she just made the process so simple and easy. I ordered my first welcome pack, and that was 4 years ago, and I've never turned back. The health that I received back in turn was invaluable. My family noticed right away. I thought, wow, how is this going to fit into my budget? It really wasn't that much, but we were on a ministry budget. And it was so refreshing when my husband said, no, we are going to make this work in our budget, because he saw that difference. And I was floored. I thought I was the only one experiencing the difference. And when he saw the difference in me, that just blew me away. And I told Cassie, I said, if this stuff really works, I will be sharing. And sure enough, I did start sharing. And when I got my first paycheck, or when I got a notification that I had money, I was like, well, how, why? I didn't understand the whole compensation plan and how generous our company was. And soon, what had been a prayer for many years to be released from a kind of a Monday through Friday job so that I could really have time freedom to serve the women in our church started to become a possibility. And then it became a reality. And I was just so excited. I was excited about the new health that I was experiencing, but also the opportunity to share this with other people. And there's so many rewards in this. It's hard to just target one. Jody covered so many of them. I would agree with her on everything that she said. It was like, that's me too. I would also say just this community has been so special. Not only does our company have integrity, but amongst our team, I feel like we are a team of integrity. Just helping one another. I can reach out to anybody at any time and say, hey, how do I do this? Or, ask a question about a product, and we support one another. And this is even beyond our team. It's really company wide, but particularly amongst our team, I just feel a real camaraderie and connection, and a place that I can invite others into. And I know that they are going to be accepted and welcomed and loved and supported. And you just don't find that in many jobs where you have that community. I had worked in a place where I felt very isolated. I just didn't feel like I had that connection with my coworkers. I felt like my work was kind of not valued very highly, and certainly not my opinion about things, or maybe my input that I might have. And here in our community, I've just felt nothing but like, hey, that's a great idea, or maybe we could implement that. Or if I'm having a rough time, people actually reach out. We support one another, we pray for one another. And times where I've had to maybe step away for a little bit when my husband had his sabbatical, what was amazing about that was the residual income. I wasn't doing as much work as I had been doing in previous months, and I still had a paycheck, and that blew me away. And I was like, you know what? That's why I love network marketing. And so it works so well with my ministry, because it's not only the time freedom, but I'm not having to work another job in order to support our family, in order to be able to do the things that I want to do with the women in our church, and also with Adult and Teen Challenge, which is something we're super passionate about. So that just aligns really well with all of my values. And so I'm definitely Plexus for life.
Heidi, thank you so much. And I'm glad you mentioned the Adult and Teen Challenge. I mean, the stories that you've got to experience already helping people in recovery through the addictions, and just the availability that you have is incredible. I love hearing all the stories of God having victory in these people's lives. And because you were passionate about that ministry and also passionate about Plexus, those two just kind of aligned and allow you to have this kind of time to be able to do these things. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate that. I love that from that perspective of feeling like isolation in the community. I mean, we were built like in the image of God to have community, to desire community. That's how we're literally wired, is to be in community with one another. And I love that you brought that up and what Plexus provides that for. So the next couple, I am super pumped. They're the only couple that I knew before Plexus. Everybody else on here, I didn't know before Plexus, but I knew them. Lindsay and Matt Seeples live in Salem, Oregon. Matt is an associate pastor at a church north of Salem, and his darling wife, Lindsay, had been in ministry, still is in ministry, but has been in ministry informally with an organization for several years, and now is taking the role of pastor wife in a church who's in ministry, but not paid, which all pastor wives on here can say, we understand that. We know what that means completely. But I got to meet Matt and Lindsay a couple of years before they joined Plexus, and they're two of my favorite people of all time. They have two sweet, amazing boys that they raise, and their life is always exciting. And it is my dear privilege to have them share with you a little bit tonight about what Plexus has done for them.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you. This is Matt and I'm Lindsay. I've been full-time ministry or part-time ministry in some capacity for about 10 years. We've been at this current location for 5 out in Dallas, Oregon. So not quite as hippie as Portland, but
we're getting there.
We're getting really close. Anyway, so yes, we about 5 years ago found Plexus, and just a really low point in our life. We had been doing infertility for 4 or 5 years before that, and had tried so many things, and our health were just at an all-time low. Matt had just been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. We had several miscarriages, and really just felt like it was the rock bottom of our life. Our mental health was really bad. Our finances were so rough. I'm not just a little bit of debt, but like $80,000 worth of debt. Little more than that, actually. And so when Plexus came along, I was really nervous. I had never ever heard of this, and I had no knowledge of what probiotics and gut balance, I didn't know any of that. And so it really felt like a giant leap in the science department for me, trying to understand. I'm that person that likes to research things. And so like most great decisions, 11 o'clock at night, I texted Cassie and was like, I don't even care. Just here's my credit card info. Just buy what you think is best, right? This is just a giant leap of faith. And man, I look back now just so thankful of God's sovereignty in my life to make a decision that felt like a giant leap of faith, when reality it wasn't at all for him. In the last 5 years, we've seen some incredible health changes. We now have 2 miracle babies, and we are foster and adopted parents. And just so many things. Our health has radically changed. But more than that, our finances, as most people know, being in ministry, we don't do it for the money. We do it because this is the calling God put on our life, and it's where we believe we belong, and we're out to love people radically. Our family motto is show up and radically love people so they know the radical love of Jesus. And so the last 10 years have been committed to that. And Plexus is also, that's exactly what we're doing through Plexus. And that's part of the reason we chose to partner. After we saw our health radically change, it was hard not to share with people, but to actually make it a business for us was because it aligned with our values as a family, which we were also doing in ministry. So for us, it just feels like an extension of ministry. And I think everybody on this call would agree with that. Plexus is just an extension of the ministry we do in a church building. Yeah, but it radically changed our finances for sure. So I'll let you talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Matt. As a lot of you know who are in ministry, so many of us have kind of the necessity to be bivocational. And that's what we found ourselves 5+ years ago. And then at 11 o'clock at night, Lindsay gets these products, and it's, the 12th thing that she's tried.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, whatever, if this works, great, then we'll move on to the next one. But then a few months in, things just started changing so quickly and rapidly with Lindsay. And she's just like, I got to start sharing. And I'm like, okay, whatever that looks like, just go for it. And she does. And then we find ourselves in this place where we need to buy, it's so small and insignificant now, but we needed the washer and dryer set. And Lindsay gets a paycheck, and it covered it. Like in the past, we had just put it on, one of our 5 or 6 credit cards and just called it a day. But her paycheck covered it. And then a few months later, we needed a new couch and her paycheck covered that. And it started to click with me like, hey, this is transforming our lives health-wise, but it's also transforming our lives financially. Like what Matt talked about earlier, is it gave us margin that we didn't have before. We had never had margin in our marriage up until this point, to where we're like, we can actually pay for the things we need, not just push them down the road and add to this mountain of debt that we already had. And 5 years later, November of last year, we paid off over $80,000 worth of debt, in huge part because of this margin that Plexus has given us. And besides this, the community that we found here in Plexus, and specifically with Lindsay and all the women that she works with and all the men that she works with, has dramatically changed our relationships with people. We're able to love people more.
Yeah,
We have
that's
more
the
time to do
extension
it.
of ministry that
Absolutely.
we've talked about. We're big advocates for paying off debt and doing your best to be in a debt-free lifestyle. Matt, we've been coaching financial classes and stuff about that. And so debt freedom was never something we ever dreamed about. Or in ministry, like people in ministry don't talk about debt freedom.
No.
That's not a lifestyle we get to have.
It's not an option.
And so when we started having income that allowed us to have margin and do things that we needed to do to take care of ourselves, suddenly we were finding ourselves not just paying off debt, but using that money for other areas of ministry, right? Like, can we fund 2, 3, 4, 5 kids to go to youth camp, because we don't have debt now. And, we've bought a house, we've paid for an adoption, just things that we're incredibly blessed. One of the biggest blessings that came out of debt freedom and this business was actually being able to quit my job. In the middle of COVID in 2021, when everybody else was getting laid off, I made a conscious choice, an intentional choice to step down from my job because I could, because my income did not fall during COVID, which is such an incredible blessing. And I do not take that lightly, but I did get to step away and be home full time with my babies. And that was the dream. I've wanted to be a mom forever, but it also allowed me to step back into ministry in some pretty high capacity ways that I really wanted to do. We both agreed we wanted to do ministry. That's part of the reason we got married. And so I was able to go to youth camp on a Thursday because I didn't have to work, or lead a women's ministry because I could be at church at noon on a Wednesday and I could take my kids. And so just the radical life change that we've had in our health and our finances, and to be debt free before 30 we don't take that lightly.
Absolutely not.
And now we want that for everybody.
Matt, Lindsay, I love that. I love your story. And it resonates so well with so many people in ministry. This is the taboo subject, right? In ministry, we don't talk about it, but a lot of pastors, a lot of missionaries, a lot of people on parachurch organizations are drowning in debt. And when you are under so much financial burden, it's very difficult to focus on what God has called you to do. And so I love your message there. I love your purpose and your drive there and your why. Thank you so much for sharing your inspiration. Appreciate you so much. And last but not least, a lot of Matts on here tonight. I don't know if anybody knows, so there's a lot of Matts. If you do the math,
Kyle missed the memo.
I missed the memo. My parents, I guess, missed the memo. But finally, we have Matthew and Crystal Wyatt. They are brand new Texans. If anybody you are in Texas watching tonight, they're in the beautiful South Padre Island. They are church planners with 1-2 Church. I cannot tell you how much I love this couple. And they were formerly in Washington, and they went down. It's crazy story how they landed in South Padre. Wasn't the location they were supposed to go on vacation. Ended there anyway. God called them after they've been pastoring in Washington for several years. Started this church where there was hardly any church presence whatsoever. And because of a lot of things Plexus provided, they've been able to be fully invested into this new work in South Padre Island, reaching all those Texas vacationers. So anyway, Matthew and Crystal White, thank you so much for being on. Love to hear from you.
Thank you. I started Plexus. I, like Lindsay, didn't know anything about probiotics, prebiotics, blood sugar balance, anything like that. But when I started watching my friend post about this gut balance, or, gut health, and how it impacted the gut brain axis, I was struggling terribly with anxiety. And it was really debilitating. There were days that I could not leave the house, and it was crushing me. And so I'm a crier. And that, I knew something. I didn't want to be on prescription medication for my whole life. It was giving me terrible side effects. And I knew that there was something more. And so I trusted my friend. I reached out to her and just poured my heart out. And she said, okay, let's start simple. Let's just target your gut health and see what that does. And within a couple weeks, I did notice a change just in my sleeping and my energy throughout the day. And then fast forward, I was able to actually wean off of my medication permanently, which was a huge goal of mine. It took me about 1.5 years, in complete transparency, and it was hard. But that last day that I took my medicine, I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is amazing. And so before that, when I first started out, and when I first started noticing a difference of just feeling better and more energy, I knew that I did not join for the business at all. I was like, I'm going to take this and I'm not going to say a word. And that quickly changed because I was working a full-time job, and I wasn't going to the store every afternoon to grab that soda and Snickers at like 2 p.m. to get me through the rest of the day. Like, that was my routine every single day. And I was noticing such a huge difference that I was thinking, everybody needs this. Everyone needs to know about this. And I was shocked, just like myself, at how many people didn't know about gut health. And the more research that I did on the gut brain axis with anxiety, and how 90% or 80% of your serotonin is in your gut, that blew me away. And so I was like, anxiety and depression and all of that ties into, it's so present in our society now. And I knew that if it could change my life, I knew I had to share about it. So after sharing for a couple months, I was actually able to quit my full-time job, and we were living in Washington at this time. Matthew was in full-time ministry, and I was able to quit to help him because our church was growing so fast, and it was just amazing. And I was able to quit and help him in full-time ministry, and it was covering our car payment, part of like medical expenses, grocery bill, gas bill, and we had that buffer and that income to come in. And I was at home with him, or I was in ministry with him, and we lived 10 feet from the church. So I was either at home or in the church. But it was just life changing. And I've met so many, like the pastors' wives in this group, anyone in ministry, anyone on our team just feels fully supported and prayed for. And at any given time, you can message and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. Will you pray for me? And just the sense of community and love that comes along with that, and how God calls us to take care of our bodies and to share that health with people so they can feel better, and then in turn serve Jesus and in their full capacity, because they feel better and they're not debilitated with anxiety in the bedroom anymore. Go ahead.
You're awesome. I'm Matt. This morning I was, my wife said, hey, should we go over what we're going to talk about? And I was like, we have to talk about what we're going to talk about. I think we already know because we've lived it. For those who don't know, 14 years ago, I tried taking my life, and my wife found me, saved my life. I got into ministry. 2018 or 2017, Crystal got into this business, and husbands you may be able to relate. I was like, okay, this is another flash in the pan. I'll let her do it. I'll do ministry. Just do your thing. And for a year, she was like, I really want you to try this. And I was like, no, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm just going to go out and work my regular job. 2018 came, and all my years of addiction to painkillers caught up to me in one moment where I was speaking in front of a high school class, a conference. And I felt something explode in my gut, and it hurt tremendously. And I had 5 minutes left, and I was like, I just got to get through this. I have to get through this. And I finished, and people were asking me questions, and I couldn't focus on the questions. I went home and I told my wife, something is really wrong with my gut. Something inside of me is tore up. She said, can I take you to the doctor? And I was like, I do what every husband does. Nope, I'm just going to sleep it off. In the morning, if it's still there, we'll go to the hospital. Well, in the morning, I waited for her to go to work. And then I called her and said, can you come home and take me to the hospital? So I realized that bowels, lower intestine, there was so much prescription drug use that it all came to a head 9 years later. And I had to have this major surgery. Went through the surgery, and this doctor told me, you have to be on this medication for the rest of your life, and gave me 3 different medications. I got home, and my wife told me, she said, can I ask you a favor? I've been asking you for a year, but can you just try this these supplements, Plexus? And this morning when I woke up, the 2 words that came to my mind were bondage and love. And I realized that my wife loved me so much that she didn't want me to stay in bondage to what was holding me back. And so I said, yes, I'm gonna try this, and I'm only gonna try it for this short amount of time, and then we'll move on with it. Well, I had my follow-up because things happened. They didn't do it right. I lost a lot of blood, was rushed in, and my blood pressure was 55/39, which is, you shouldn't be moving, and I wasn't. I had a follow-up appointment after that, and the doctor said, this medication is doing wonders on your body. And I said, can I be honest with you? I know I'm a pastor, but I need to be honest with you. I haven't taken that or even filled the prescriptions that you've given me. And he looked at me and he said, what do you mean? And I said, my wife has introduced me to these supplements, and they changed everything about me. And he looked at me, and for the first time I realized the bondage to love was, he looked at me and he said, whatever you're taking, don't stop taking that. Forget what I told you to do. Don't stop taking that. And then as Lindsay said, I would do this, and Kyle knows this, and people who know me know this. I would do ministry for free. I would shout to the highest hilltops of Jesus who saved my life in the last minute. We all know that's not a reality. Like I can't do this for free. But our goal in ministry is when the 10th comes and I see the check that comes in, and I realize as church planners, we don't have health insurance. So now we can use that to save up for times where we have to go in to get procedures done or to get checkups done. This is a weird thing to say, but 3 days ago, I had signed someone up last week, and 3 days ago, I got an alert saying, you got this much money in your Plexus account for signing someone up. And I went to Wingstop and got some wings because my wife was out of town, and I was like, I'm not cooking, but thank God for Plexus. So our goal is the same, and it's so hard for some people to separate this, and I hope I'm not going too long, but Plexus and ministry for me go hand in hand. When I see people in bondage, my first reaction is, can I give you the answer to what can take you out of bondage? The only reason I'm telling you that is not because I get paid for it. It's because I love you that much, because you're created in God's image and he wants you to live a life of freedom. So whether it's Jesus or whether it's Plexus, I'm more than willing to share both. And it goes hand in hand with us, because we see people in bondage with their health. We see people in bondage with their sin. And I feel like we have this answer that, hey, you can try this. It may not work for you, but you can try this. And what has been so great, that just by realizing that we can walk hand in hand with ministry and Plexus, we have this margin, as the other Matt, not that Matt, but the other Matt talked about. We have this margin where our ultimate goal is to open a rehab center for those who are struggling that can't pay for rehab, because rehab is expensive. Our goal is to put our money towards that. Our goal is also to remove the stress from this church plant and reduce our salary. Now, some business-minded people may think that's nuts, but no, that's where we're at, is if we can supplement that while helping people gain this freedom in both Jesus and in their health, it's incredible. And our motto has been, like Lindsay said, her motto, our motto has been show up and love people. And that includes health, and that includes Jesus. So we don't do this for the numbers. We don't do this for the points. We don't do this for the money. Those are all perks that have been added on. We do this for relationships, and we do it to release people from the bondage, whether it's spiritual, physical, mental, emotional, whatever it is. We're here to try to say, hey, this may work for you to release you from bondage. You know why? Because we love you that much.
That's amazing. That'll preach, Pastor. That'll preach. I love that. I love that story. I love that God can get through the hard-headedness of husbands. I love that he gives us amazing wives, that we outkicked our coverage, and then his grace shows up in those areas of our lives. And I do love what you said there, Matt, about just releasing people from bondage, but also being able to take the weight of a church plant. And by the way, a church who loves their pastor, by the way, this church is doing amazing things. It is blowing up there in South Padre Island. And I know they want to serve and be able to serve them, not just with the gospel, but with that relief. I think from that budget constraint of paying a pastor is incredible. So, thank you guys for coming out. We want to just talk to you a little bit about our story, and then we'll close it out for the night. I was thinking of a verse tonight that came to mind. Colossians 3:23 says, whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men. And I can say without a doubt, every single person who you've heard from tonight, they're working for the Lord. They are not working for the praises of men. They're not working for the accolades. They're not looking for the accomplishments. They're working so that they can make a further impact in the kingdom.
Yes. And I think I just loved, Matthew, how you brought that up of true holistic service, because that was one of the things when we, serving in ministry. I was a pastor's wife for 15 years, and, we'd go out and we'd serve people in a lot of different ways, right? But the main avenue as in ministry is through spiritual health, right? We're focused on their spiritual health. And that is just one aspect, right, of a holistic person. And what I saw when I got into Plexus, I started because I needed the products. I was at rock bottom with our health, like both of us. I think the stress of ministry really compounded our health struggles. Because Kyle, on call 24/7, struggling financially because we took jobs where we were called, like wherever the Lord said to go, we went, not knowing how financially it would it would work, because we moved all the way from Texas to Oregon for a replant. And it was about, I mean, I don't think it was even like
It wasn't
part-time
even
pay.
part-time.
It wasn't even part-time pay, but we trusted the Lord because we knew he was calling us to it. But in the midst of that, Kyle was working 2 other part-time jobs. I started my own photography business just to like make some, you know, just some side money. And then we were homeschooling, and then said yes to the call of adoption. And through that, adoption had always been on our heart. We had always, I mean, from the day that we even met, like we talked about, we felt we wanted to adopt one day. But adoption costs money, right? Like the call to say yes to that obedience. We trusted that the Lord would provide, and we had no idea that yes, that obedience to saying yes to adoption, he was going to provide through a network marketing business. We started on these products just to feel better, and very quickly it became evident that this was the answer to our prayers. And it was one of those, like, I was like, Lord, are you sure? Like, are you sure? Because network marketing was something I steered clear of for years. I had my friends that asked me to do it. I was like, nope, that's not for me. But it's because I just didn't understand what it was all about. I didn't understand the power of relationships in this business. I was afraid that I was going to have to sell products to people, right? And like use my relationships for money. And I didn't want to be a part of that. And what God showed me is that here with this company, with the way that this compensation plan is structured, and honestly, with the culture that our leadership has created, is that it frees us to simply love people well. We can love them through a health transformation, right? We can love them through financial transformation. We can love them through spiritual and mental transformation. We get to have the incredible privilege every year. We get to go on a trip. Plexus sends us to Hawaii, and this year it's to Mexico. And it's for, top earners, and it's an amazing trip. It's such a gift to have time freedom. But what I will tell you is during that trip, we get to witness dozens and dozens of people being baptized in the ocean. Kyle got to baptize our kiddos in the ocean last year. You got to baptize like a dozen, probably 24 people, like that, but there was worship and prayer on the beach, hundreds of people showing up. That is what this culture is. And so when we say it's different, like network marketing was not on my radar before, but I am so glad that God said, this is the answer. And so we were able to say yes to even 2 more adoptions. And now we have 9 children, and it has allowed us to truly be present. Our ministry is it's our family right now. That is where the Lord has placed our focus, is in raising up our children. We have 4 kids with high needs. And so we have just watched the Lord really bring us something that we didn't even know that we needed. And to be able to say yes without hesitation of like, Lord, you've called us to this, and I have no idea how you're going to provide, but I trust you. And he has done that over and over and over again.
Absolutely. When we talk about Plexus has changed our lives, we look at our 3 children who are adopted, and it literally changed their lives, gave them a forever family. I know that many of you are watching here and you're listening to all these stories, and you may hear a connection between all the stories and talk about the culture of Plexus and the values of Plexus. And let me go ahead and answer a question you may be having. Plexus isn't a Christian company, but it is a company full with believers. And the reason why is because the values reflect that of the Bible. The values reflect that of what you and I have been redeemed into, and that is serving people without strings attached, loving people regardless of what they can give back to you, and serving in such a way that you're pouring yourself out, as Paul says, like a drink offering, right? So all these people, no matter where they come from, no matter their background, no matter what kind of experiences they've had or what kind of life they've lived, anybody can do this. And you may have a ministry, you may have something that has kind of, God has maybe spurred in your heart just listening to this, like, oh, I've always wanted to do this, or oh, I'd love to not have my church pay for my salary. I'd love to be able to give to this opportunity or this ministry or this church plant, or I'd love to stop working all these 3, 5, 7 jobs and just focus on my ministry. Plexus can be a pathway to those goals, to those dreams. And the reason why Christians are flocking to this company and really flocking to this industry is because it truly does align with things in which that we believe in. We get to serve people and get paid for it in the sense that we're meeting their spiritual needs, their health needs, and their mental needs. And we provide a community where they can be their authentic selves. They're not alone. So there is somebody who invited you to watch this tonight, to listen to all these ragtag ministers and minister wives and talk about their stories and what God has done. And I would love for you to contact them and say, hey, I'd love more information. I'd love to see how God can use Plexus in my life to do some of the things that we heard tonight. We appreciate you. To everybody who was on here tonight, thank you so much for giving up your time with your family to be able to share this amazing opportunity. We appreciate you all. God bless you all, and praying that this next season is one that God shows up in big ways as we further the kingdom, one person at a time. Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody.